Star Citizen will eventually allow players to build their own bases in-game, and there is a whole host of gameplay that brings. Playing in some of the Jump Town event, literally assaulting a structure, a base, a facility, has made me want to talk about bases. But we're going to be talking about persistent Habs, hangars, and what Cloud Imperium have said previously about all of this, as well as talking about my expectations for the gameplay and the features here. Cloud Imperium have been working on new outposts, persistent hangars, and persistent Habs in various forms for some time now, and this is all steps towards being able to have customization of player Habs and eventually player bases. We saw at CitizenCon 2021 a new outpost and outposts that Cloud Imperium have been building for Pyro and Frontier systems. Basically, these are going to form villages and towns where there are going to be missions, goods, things for trade. It's a place for you to rest, and you're going to be able to attack them if you want, or search around for loot, and there's going to be missions and lots of other gameplay associated here that can then be approached in many different ways. From what Cloud Imperium was saying and showing, there won't be any kind of like hard locking out of doing particular things there. You can actually just pull out a weapon and start blazing, other than dealing with the repercussions and reputation issues afterwards, though. That is something you will have to deal with for sure if you start just blowing away sort of citizens around that area and the villagers and the shop staff. You're not going to be able to get back there. They might just shoot you down. These outposts are going to be very sort of rep-driven. Reputation is going to be key for interacting with a huge portion of the NPCs in the world and factions and all that sort of stuff. They might just shoot you down before landing, but most of the time your reputation will be somewhere in between of them loving you, which they probably would allow you just to walk around areas freely if they liked you, and you could probably go into restricted areas, but most people will be somewhere in between there, where if they go towards a restricted area, they'll be prevented from going in. If you try and push past, they'll get mad or attack you. There are green zones in-game. You can't pull out your weapon at a station yet, or in a sort of built-up area, but eventually you will be able to. They're sort of phasing that stuff out, so you have a lot more choice in what you do, but there will be more consequences to that. They're using spawn lockers to be able to spawn security forces and things like that will come deal with you if you start shooting your way out of microtech for no reason. Cloud Imperium have been saying for a while that these outposts were connected to player Habs and steps towards their implementation. Now, from what I can tell about player Habs is that Cloud Imperium want to have persistence to some degree for players spawning at outposts like these, and potentially some form of customization of the rooms there. Some quite basic stuff to start with. Now, this might be a more instantized version that follows your character through sharding, so you basically might have your room appearing at different places around the same hab. They might go, well, there's like 10 rooms here as part of this sort of like modular hab on a outpost on a planet, and yeah, it doesn't necessarily, you're not necessarily always in room 1, and you might be in room 5, but you might have customized your room somewhat, and it will that customization will follow your room around. Around the same time as well, you can probably expect a more refined version of customization for the sort of habs you spawn at planets and stations as well, allowing you a little bit more customization and expression. Though we don't really know where plans currently sit for all of this, it may have evolved somewhat from what Cloud Imperium originally have done in the past and what they have been previously talking about. On the roadmap tracker, some player hab work was completed in Q4 of 2021, so last year, and more specifically listed as work that grants the players the ability to have their own persistent habs. But also, last year we saw some work completed on increasing the number of player habs to 100 per landing zone, which paves the way for more players per server, more redundancy, that sort of stuff. This makes sense as Cloud Imperium build towards an actual MMO and sharding, server meshing, expanding out servers, getting more players in the game, having this sort of like super mega meshed server with all the players on, that sort of jazz. Something that was delayed from Alpha 3.17, but I think we will see later this year, is persistent hangars. Work on the roadmap shows it wrapping up a series of sprints at the end of November this year, that being work that grants the players the ability to have their own persistent hangars. This will also bring changes to the cargo gameplay loop by allowing players to pack their grids manually. However, we do know that this requires some persistent streaming core tech to come online, like sharding, basically things like iCache have all been sort of piled into the persistent streaming feature, and they aren't referred to as separately anymore. So when we've previously been talking about iCache years past, and this is now persistent streaming. And we know now that obviously this is an important part of the expanded cargo gameplay that is coming online later this year, with more items to sell in Alpha 3.17, the cargo refactor in 3.18. It looks to me like Cloud Imperium are really focusing on cargo and the economy this year and trying to get a lot more gameplay for that, and I would expect to see a lot more in the latter half of this year. Persistent hangars and persistent habs will have some various uses and customization, allowing you to have your own little corner in the verse, somewhere to put your flare items and your gear and store a load of your important items, somewhere that you wake up from, somewhere you return to once you're done for the day. For hangars, this is probably going to be sort of storage space for cargo, going to be one of the most important things here, and storage for your ships. We're probably going to see cargo services and sort of cargo storage available on cargo decks as well on stations, so you'll be able to rent extra space there. There will be costs and times associated with loading and unloading cargo in the future, but also a dynamic economy, meaning prices change, and there might be reasons to store up commodities as well. As this evolves, you might have your own fuel depot, for example, where you run a load of starfarers out and you want to make sure you've got enough gas to be able to go gas other players, and you might be running that in the pyro system. But it might be that you just want to sit on all your steel until it's more valuable. So you're like piling up a load of cheap steel, and one day it's more valuable, so you sell it. I do have a question of, in the future, how will ship storage and spawning be handled at smaller outposts, or somewhere that I sort of like have a hab, but it's a lot more isolated? Do I have to work out a way of getting a ship to me? Is it sort of like always next to me? Does it despawn when I'm not there? That sort of jazz. And a lot of this is being talked about and worked out by Cloud Imperium at the moment, but we don't know yet. And it's very possible that Cloud Imperium don't know yet, as a large portion of their development is iterative and thought about as it's being implemented and then evolves from there. But all of that is actually pretty simple. It's pre-made structures and outposts that are already there that players can have a hangar in, or maybe it's just a UI interface allowing them to have access to cargo and cargo storage. And some of these spaces might be shared by multiple people or instantized in some way, sort of. Again, with the Habs, it isn't really your own physical address for a Hab, at least at this stage. Cloud Imperium have talked about having your own physicalized addressed hangars and Habs in some areas and locations. The large cities and large space on planets certainly have room for it, but we're certainly not there yet. There's a lot more tech and a lot more steps that are needed before we get something like that. And it's quite possible that other solutions will present themselves that work a lot better than having physicalized addresses in cities. There are always questions about the viability of features in Star Citizen. The plan is for players to be able to have their own physicalized hangars and Habs, but is it going to be a thing that is possible in all situations? We don't know yet. And Cloud Imperium will go for a next best option, or something that is much more fun and gamified if it is impossible or not viable. Now, something that will allow you to have a lot more control is your own base. Originally, the massive Pioneer ship was going to allow you to build a simple outpost for buildings for a variety of purposes, and then deploy them on the ground. Little modular outposts that we've already sort of got in game, but for multiple uses. Let me read you the original Consolidated Outland Pioneer pitch. It's an upcoming self-contained mobile construction yard capable of creating planetary modular structures, allowing colonists to customize their new homes on the frontier. Utilizing an onboard reserve of resources, the Pioneer can construct and deploy modular outposts, as well as continue to build additional modules to turn your outpost into a settlement. That was the idea of it. It was allowing you to build a big old set of outposts and bases for exploiting the land there. However, the last time Cloud Imperium spoke about it, they said they had changed the Pioneer somewhat to being more of a mobile factory that won't be essential for players to build their own bases, but it will allow them to build a lot more and a lot more efficiently and do a lot more. So, in fact, I have the statement that Chris Roberts made about this in 2020. We've been rethinking how the Pioneer will work to make her more flexible rather than just spitting out prefabricated outposts. We want her to be more of a mobile fabrication facility that would be near your building site. With the Pioneer, you'll be able to build these structures without having to ship in the component parts, as long as you have the supply of raw materials. You don't need a Pioneer to build a homestead, but if you want to build a decent settlement, or you want to build something relatively quickly as opposed to having to fly in prefabricated components from major landing zones, you'll want to have a pioneer or a friend or someone that is willing to lend you their services. I really like that. That says that you are able to build outposts and bases without a pioneer if you want. However, it's going to be a lot harder. It's going to make you your base building a lot more limited. Rastar is the tool that Cloud Imperium are using to build out outposts in-game and similar points of interest. Assumedly, they used it to build out the Pyro outposts that they showed at CitizenCon. Currently, it's used internally for purposes like that, building out outposts, building out settlements, building out the gameplay area. However, they're building out that UI a bit further, and they're going to give it in-game functionality, allowing players to build outposts and bases with it in an RTS real-time strategy type mode and view. These bases will then require you to build power, and you can set them up for mining or storage or forward operating bases, but that's the way we're going to be able to build bases ourselves. We're going to have this sort of UI that we can place structures and go, this is where I'm planning to build it, bam, 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 bam. Then, assumedly, bring over the parts and materials that we need for the building, and then somehow it's going to start building. Now, do we need the Pioneer to help with that? Do we have ground-based vehicles? Does labour come along, sort of manpower come along and sort of sort it out for us that we've had to pay? We don't know the full extent of the plans yet. They're certainly in flux and I suppose being discussed internally, but also I like making videos like this and talking about things like this so that we can have a bit of a say and talk about what we would like. I think Cloud Imperium watch a reasonable amount of YouTube videos, and maybe they'll grab some of the opinions in the comments below if people have some good ideas. But we do know that we're going to be able to use bases for a load of different reasons, for making farms, mining facilities, some maybe moisture gatherers, or maybe you'll use them as storage facilities, or literally a combat base, something like that. How will these exist on multiple servers though? We know the plans in the sort of short and mid-term are to have sharding, which basically goes, well actually, in a similar way that we've already got, there is going to be multiple servers, but they communicate with the God AI. If you do something on one of the servers, it sort of saves it there. It's important, and then we'll load back in. When you load back in to the game, you'll go onto a shard, and like your base will be there, and you can interact with it. Now, if I build a base somewhere, is that going to be on all the shards? Well, that's what Cloud Imperium is saying. They're saying, yes, it's going to be on multiple shards, but it will be non-interactable on the shards that you aren't active on. At least on the short term, that was the sort of plans they were talking about. Now, that does beg the question, how do you attack and take one over? Do I have to actually be find the shard that you're active on to be able to attack it? Well, that doesn't make sense. So, obviously, some of this is going to be being worked out by Cloud Imperium as they go. They're probably going to want to try and get player bases in and functional before they then find out some solutions about how they can be attacked and taken. So, bear that in mind. It's an iterative process, and we don't have all the information yet. Land claims are a major part of this too, so Cloud Imperium haven't talked about land claims much recently, but in Wild West systems, I've deemed them sort of kind of like Pyro, systems that don't have a legitimate authority like the UEE or the Xi'an or Banu governments, or like systems that aren't privately owned at all. You can pretty much build a base in these Wild West systems wherever you want, and where the land is flat enough to support a base, though there might be danger of attack or environmental issues, that sort of jazz. How are you going to get all the materials to the area where you want to build your base? This is going to be in contrast to star systems that have UEE presence, because in UEE systems, you're going to need a land claim to build a base and to exploit the resources on the land. So if you attempt to trespass on someone else's land, that will be a crime. And security forces will also help enforce and protect these land claims as well. From what we've previously seen of land claims, they come in big old plots, 4x4 or 8x8 kilometer plots, which you then sort of mark out and then purchase them through a claims office. That's then your land. You can exploit the resources from there. You can build bases there. If anyone trespasses, that's a crime. But somewhere like Pyro, you don't have land claims. You'll have to protect your base by yourself or hope to keep it hidden. One of the expected gameplay loops for Star Citizen as well is surveying. So you'd find a good location for a base that has really good mineral deposits or valuable things on the land, and then sell that location or land claim to someone else. Surveying should have some quite interesting gameplay to it as well, but I love the idea of exploring and just sort of looking around for, ooh, that might be a good idea for a base over there. Oh, this is quite nice land. Player bases, for me, are an incredibly important part of Star Citizen's future. I think that it's going to be how orgs fight over areas and star systems. So, sort of in Pyro, you've got like really valuable resources maybe in an area on a planet or part of the system. If you locate the enemy base and capture or destroy it, then they can no longer get resupplied there, is the idea. So maybe if you're fighting with another org, you'd want to push them out so that you can have all that sort of resource field to yourself, and eventually you'll push them out of the system if they have no other place to resupply in, because maybe there's no infrastructure there, maybe there's no stations that can resupply them at the scale they need. The hope is that you'll be able to craft things like ammo and fuel and potentially components and weapons at bases as well, because that sort of makes sense then, because you'd build a base in these sort of Wild West areas and go, well, now we have a resupply depot. We know that Cloud Imperium wants some crafting in Star Citizen, but again, we don't know all the details yet. And even if we did, they're likely to change and evolve somewhat, so we can only talk about expectations maybe and what Cloud Imperium have talked about and sort of track how this evolves. Bases will also need defenses. That means that they just sort of like can't be wiped out super easily above from orbit or with just a few bombs, because that's an issue, isn't it? If you go, well, let's build a base and it could just be destroyed because it's static really easily from orbit or really easily by bombs. You need shields, you need EMPs, you need turrets and anti-missile and anti-bomb systems. Something, some reasons to assault it on the ground, because otherwise Star Citizen becomes a very much remote experience of, oh, I found your base, we win, because boom. But you can't just have it that ships are better than a static base. You have to have reasons to assault bases on the ground and reasons for players to fight over them that aren't just over in an instant. I mean, there's an argument to say that hiding a base is potentially the most important thing, but defenses need to mean something too, at least in my opinion, and I'm happy for other people to have their own opinions and sort of convince me otherwise and talk about it. One of the reasons I make these videos is to talk about these kind of features and the plans for them and see how we expect them to go, because I think everyone's going to have very different views of all the different Star Citizen features that are planned, and the only way that we know what other people's sort of views for them are is by talking about them. When can we expect all this? Well, new Outposts will be coming when Pyro drops. I'm hoping we see this as early as Q4 this year with Alpha 4.0, but we'll have to wait and see. Maybe Alpha 4.0 will get delayed to next year. I don't know. Persistent hangars could be well before that, potentially of Q3 this year. We'll have to wait and see again, but I do think that's much earlier. Obviously, it was pushed back, persistent hangars, from Q1 of this year, so hopefully it's just a quarter or two delay. Bases and the tools to place them are being worked on at the moment by Cloud Imperium, but there are no hard times yet. I'm expecting Cloud Imperium to show off base building and a load of this new stuff at CitizenCon 2022 this year, and for all of it to then evolve more once it lands. But what do you think? Are there any particular features that you want me to discuss like this in the future? Like salvage or bounty hunting or whatever? You go, well, I want you to talk about a particular gameplay loop that's coming in the future. What do we know about it? How it might evolve? Let's have a discussion about it. Are you excited for base building, or are you happy with just some persistent hangar stuff in the meantime? When do you think we're actually going to start to see any of this in-game? Maybe later this year? Or is it all going to get delayed and pushed back and make me sad? Or what do you think we will be able to do with bases? What do you want to be able to do with bases? How would you like base assaults, capturing and destroying to play out? Do you like the idea of bases being able to change hands? Do you think they should be destroyed, easily blown up? Do you think they should degrade over time if you don't maintain them? We don't know. We don't know a lot of this stuff. But whatever your thoughts, whatever your opinions, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below.
Mummy, my friend told me at school today that Star Citizen was a scam. Oh, Tim, is that why you got into a fight? Yes, Mummy. The only scam is people stealing all your internet infos and blocking your ability to watch things on Netflix and such with regional-based access. That's why we use our words, Tim. You should have told those bullies to get NordVPN, and also that Star Citizen is the best damn space sim ever.
Yes, these two people are right. Get NordVPN, and also Star Citizen's great. Also, Timmy was a 35-year-old teacher at the school. And it wasn't even a school, it was a pub, and he was a barman. Every month we have a ship giveaway, and for February 2022, it's for an Aegis Saber, the high-tech medium fighter with loads of firepower, but it comes in an auspicious red paint scheme as part of the Red Festival, as well as lifetime insurance and a Star Citizen game package. All you need to do to be in for a chance of winning is comment on any of my videos made during the month. You can further support the channel by clicking the join button underneath any of my videos. You can also donate or become a Patreon. Your feedback, though, from comments really helps the channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And also, if you're looking for a diegetic little controlly boy that makes your Star Citizen experience and potentially some other games pretty good fun on your touchscreen devices, then check out Game Glass. You've got that, you've got NordVPN links, you've got loads of other stuff, all in the links below. Click them all! Click them all! Maybe not all of them, that'd be madness.